Welcome to the House of Truth. Today we're continuing our series on the time of the wild time of the judges. The book of Judges is over, but the wild times are not. But the book of Judges does not include all the time of the judges. And among those times it doesn't include is the book of Ruth we'll be looking at today. Last time we looked at the wicked men of Gibeah and saw how God deals with how God brings judgment on those who do not bring judgment on evil, but as simple as just doing nothing and letting it continue. God brings judgment on them as if they'd done the evil themselves. And before that, we saw the religion of Micah. We talked about the religion of Micah, a man-made, man-controlled religion for worshiping God that is contrary to the commandments of God. Well, the day we're going 180 from all that. Everything we're flipping all that completely with the book of Ruth. Those stories were mostly about Jewish people, Israelites in the land of Israel, who lived badly. But today we're going to talk about a Gentile that lives godly. And we begin in Ruth chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. And it came to pass in the days of the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. And a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his two sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife was Naomi. The name of his two sons was Mahlon and Chilion, Ephraimites of Bethlehem, Judah. And they came into the country of Moab and continued there. And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her two sons. And they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name was Orpah, and the name of the other was Ruth. And they dwelled there about 10 years. And Mahlon and Chilion died, both of them. And the woman was left of her two sons and her husband. So this story starts out just tragic. One series of tragedies after another befall Naomi, whose name means pleasant. And the first, and this is going to help us determine. Notice that this came to pass in the days when the judges ruled. Well, that period, remember from when the judges first started ruling till Samuel, which started as soon as after Joshua divided the land, we're told, to Samuel was 450 years. All right, but so that's a long span of time. But this is going to help us determine when that was. There was a famine in the land. And remember, we looked at before how God had said that if they obeyed him, they would live long lives. They get rain in their due season. There would be none barren among them. And none barren among them, it'd be like days of heaven on earth. But as part of their agreement that they made with God, penalty phase. If they went and revoked him, worshipped their gods, and so on and so forth, then he would bring series of disasters upon them, culminating with them being pushed out of the land. And among those disasters was famine. Now it doesn't say drought here, because remember the land of Israel depends upon rain. He had told them it's like the land of Egypt, this river bringing water all the time. It depends upon rain. It depends upon rain coming at the right time. It could have the right amount. It could have the right amount of rain per year, but just come at the wrong time, and the crops will not grow or yield as they should. So this is the judgment of God, which means they were living wickedly. So it's going to be in one of those periods, not only one of those periods where there's peace and prosperity in the land that would go on until a judge died, but one of those periods when after the judge died, they turned against Israel turned against God to provoke him with other gods once again. And so this is one of those times. And notice the names of the two sons, Mahlon and Chilion. Mahlon means sickness, and Chilion means wasting away. Now, the man's name is Elimelech. My God is king. And his wife's Naomi. But that does not mean they lived, their life wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant, and they had not lived like God was king. We'll show that from Naomi's own words later. So there's sickness, so their children were sickly, his two sons. Again, so it comes from Machan, and Chilion. Machan means sickness. His name is sickness and wasting away, like people doing a famine. But now they marry these two women. Orpah, a name giving neck or a fawn, and there's something graceful about her. Perhaps pleasant to be around, so on and so forth. And Ruth, which means companion. And they dwelled there about 10 years. So this famine went on a long time. Now, we don't know what Mahlon and Chilion died, or Elimelech. People say it was war. But given their names, it's probably just poor health, at least Mahlon and Chilion. And the Elimelech could just died of old age. We don't know. But for whatever reason, they died. They died there. And let me show you. This was not just in Israel. I mean, not just in Bethlehem, Judah. I'm sorry, Bethlehem, Judah. But it was all of Israel, because they went to Moab. Right about here, where this M is in Shemesh, is about where Bethlehem's located. And notice they had to go through Benjamin, the shortest route. Went through Benjamin, famine. Gad, famine. Reuben, famine. Moab, no famine. Now, why is there famine on the people of God and not on these idol worshippers down here in Moab? Because Israel had a covenant with God and Moab didn't. And that covenant said if they went and worshiped their gods, that God would bring judgments upon them. It would be a penalty phase that would come upon them. Culminated with them being forced out of the land, which happened to Ruth, to the family of Naomi. They were forced out of the land. And as one of the ways, if you remember, God said he pushed the Canaanites out of the land, caused the land to vomit them out, was through plagues and famine. So you got the same thing going on here. But no famine in Moab. All this time, none here, 11 years or so there. And last one, all that's left is her sons, and these two women never had any children. Perhaps barrenness on them, or perhaps sickness and wasting away, just weren't able to produce children. And they're in Moab, and we'll talk more about that later because it's very important about this Moab business. Now, let's continue on here in Ruth 1:6-9 and see what happens. See what happens after these 11 years or so of being under great judgment, of being thrust out of the land. And in Ruth 1:6-9, she said, Then she arose with her daughter-in-laws. She returned from the country of Moab. For she heard in the country of Moab how the Lord had visited his people and given them bread. Therefore she went out of the place where she was, and her two daughters-in-law with her. And they went on their way to return to the land of Judah. And Naomi said to her two daughter-in-laws, "Go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you may find rest, each of you in the house for her husband." And she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept. Okay. No, so they're still staying with Naomi. She has no one else to take care of her. They're both loyal to her to some extent. And they're gonna go with her to this land of Judah. But she has what's good for them in mind. She asked the Lord to deal kindly with them as they have with the dead, their dead husbands, and with her. Lord, grant you may find rest. Notice each in the house of your husband. Go to your mother's house and get remarried, is what she's telling them. Still young enough, they can remake their lives. Now we don't know how old they were when they got married to Mahon and Kilion. We don't know, but now there's walking the ways of the Lord. He said people were children until they were 20. But they may have adopted the way of the heathen, particularly in the land of the heathen. They would sometimes marry off girls as soon as they hit puberty, which is one reason why there was a lot of child death and childbirth. 13-year-old girl's not meant to be having babies. She's not just because she's got the bare minimum, and everything's built out for her to do this. Now, an adult, if she's 20, so but maybe 15, perhaps they wait to 20. We don't know, but somewhere between 15 and 20 is probably the most likely. So now they're around 25, still plenty young enough to get remarried and raise up a family. So she's looking out for their good and sending them away. She's apparently plans on making this walk by herself. Again, to give you an idea, from up where Messiah lived to Jerusalem, a straight walk was 3 days. So this is a 3 or 4 day walk we're talking about. Now we're going to look at their reactions, the reaction to what she's asked them to do. Again, she's looking out for their good. In Ruth 1 through 10, here's what they do. They said, "Surely return with you unto your people." And Naomi said, "Turn again, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Are there any more sons in my womb? They may be your husbands. Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should say I have hope, if I should have a husband tonight, and also bear sons, will you tarry till they are grown? Would you stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, it grieves me much for your sake that the hand of the Lord has gone out against me." They lifted their voices and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her. Okay, so they were going to stay with her. After all, they had joined her family. This family's joined together, and what she said wasn't, she said, "Look, normally they'd try to marry someone else within her family to stay in the family, but there is no one else. If she could, she's too old to have a husband, too old to bear children," is her main point here. But even if she did and got pregnant that night, were they going to be able to wait 20 years? It'd be difficult for them to have children of their own at that point. Maybe not impossible, but difficult at 45 or 50. Slim chance they would have children. So she's talking about the only reasonable thing they can do. The only reasonable thing they can do is go back to their own people and find another husband, or at least find another husband and better chance among their own people. And they cry again, but notice Orpah kisses her and leaves, but Ruth cleaves to her. Remember, Orpah means fawn. And when she kissed, that meant she was leaving. Now, Orpah, a little factoid for you, is who Oprah Winfrey's named after. Her mother was somewhat illiterate and spelled it wrong. Her name was supposed to be Orpah. And Orpah, now we'll read our next text, see the importance of that. It says something about Oprah, who's named after Orpah. And here's what we read about Orpah in Ruth chapter 1, verses 15 through 18, and about Ruth, the contrast between the two. And she said, behold, your sister's gone back unto her people and unto her gods. Return you after your sister-in-law. Ruth said, entreat me not to leave you, or to follow after you. For where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I'll be buried. Lord, do so to me, and more also, if anything but death part me and you and me. And when she saw she was steadfast and minded to go with her, she left off speaking unto her. Okay, so all right, now notice Oprah's namesake, Orpah, turned her back. She's gone back to her people, Moab, picture of the world, and their gods, the gods of the world, have turned her back on the people of God, on the people of God, in this case, a literal way, to go back to the ways of the world. For 10 years, she had lived. 10 years, the indication here is, notice, your gods be my God. Perhaps they got there and Naomi repented. As I should have brought up here, the hand of the Lord, all this has happened to her because of the hand of the Lord is against Naomi. This wasn't just her speaking out of grief, feeling like the hand of the Lord was with her, was against her. This shows some signs of repentance here. She realizes she's brought this on herself, or her and Israel collectively. They made an agreement with the God, and the agreement had a penalty phase, and they had went and worshipped other gods, and so on and so forth. And the Lord said his hand would be against them if they did that. She's acknowledging that, so she had repented at some point and has gone back to worshiping God. So Orpah knew what it was like to worship God. Had come at least a stranger connected to the people of God to worship the God of Israel. And yet she went back to the gods of this world. And Oprah Winfrey was well named because she's no different. All she's done is influence people to turn from God and to walk in the ways of this world, which are wicked. Now we're going to contrast her with Ruth. Notice Ruth. Don't ask me to leave. She's going to follow Naomi to the death. Where you die, I'll die, and there I will be buried. So nothing but death will separate her from Naomi. A Ruth here, the companion. She's going to go where she's going to go. She's going to live where she lives. Her people, the people of Israel, are going to be the people of Ruth. And your God's going to be my God. So Ruth's determined to go. She's that faithful companion. She's like Messiah, that friend that sticks closer than a brother. That is what Ruth is like to Naomi here. Now we continue on in Ruth 1, verse 19 to 22, and see how things go for them once they arrive. So when they came into Bethlehem, so that the two went until they came to Bethlehem. They came to pass they come to Bethlehem. All the city was moved about and said, "Is this Naomi?" She said to them, "Call me not Naomi, but call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and the Lord has brought me home empty again. Why call you Naomi? See, the Lord testifies against me, and the Lord has afflicted me." And she returned in the Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of the barley harvest. Okay, first of all, first thing I want you to notice is the people in Bethlehem can't believe she came back. And remember, she says, "Don't call me Mara." It means bitterness. Okay. You've seen that word before, remember? Bitter. Now the Lord's dealt bitterly with me. The Lord testified against me. Testified that what you've been doing was contrary. And he said he would do it. And this is what they agreed to when they made a covenant with him at Sinai. It's part of the covenant. Those words would be a testimony against them if they didn't keep the covenant. And it testified that the things that came upon them, these judgments, were their own fault. She's taking responsibility. She's owning what she's done. The Almighty's afflicted me. She realized she just had a bad streak. It wasn't like, some will say, well, they had a bad week. Well, she had a bad 11 or 12 years. But she takes responsibility for it. She recognizes it. And also, remember the famine ended. And what's that tell us? The Lord visited his people and given them bread. The famine was supernatural, and so is the end of it. This tells us the people of Israel had repented under one of the judges. I have to show you, which brings us to when Ruth Naomi, when it's occurred, most likely. Now here's some facts. Here's some facts we know. Nahshon, the grandfather of Boaz, died before into the promised land. At Kadesh Barnea, in Numbers, before they went, and the 10 spies went and they brought back the evil report, he was listed as one of the princes, yet the prince over the whole tribe of Israel. Of Judah. And only Joshua and Caleb came out of that generation. He died in the promised land. That means his son Salma, or sometimes called Salmon, Simone had to be born during this wandering. He marries Rahab. Rahab was spared when Jericho was destroyed the first year they entered the promised land at the end of the 40 years of wandering. So that's the earliest they could have married, was say perhaps a year later. Now Boaz had to be born quite late. And if you look at this time from there, you find that from there to King David, the number of generations given, they had to be born almost 150 years when perhaps they were the last to be born late. And there's a supernatural element to their birth in this regard. But Rahab would have been 60, 40 years later, perhaps. Assuming she was 20 when she was Jericho was destroyed, and she was delivered from the life of harlotry to here, 20 years. So then Boaz has to be born around here. Well, this famine occurs. She's gone at least 11 years. So it's got to be one of these periods of judgment. It's got to be a period of judgment that's at least 11 years old. Now, there's when they're 18 here, the Moabite judgment, but Boaz then the gap between the average generation size that'd be a lot bigger. Would have been even bigger because Boaz been a lot younger. So Boaz here at 153. Now people think, well, that's okay. Didn't even live that long back then, but however, we know that's not true. Not only is the genealogy given to us to show that it has to be, they have to have lived that long, in some cases, and had children. We also know from secular history as well. Kenosis of Greece, or Gnosis, I'm sorry, of Crete lived to be 150 years old. And that was around 200 BC, and the Cretans actually tried to worship him. He said no, they thought he was immortal. Now in the 1600s, very well documented, a baroness in Ireland lived to 147, and her teeth grew back in. She had 3 sets of teeth of adult teeth in her lifetime. Her teeth were renewed 3 times, 2 or 3 times. Means when her teeth got old and broke, new ones grew in their place, just like adult teeth push out baby teeth. And God and the Pashtun today in Afghanistan, it's not uncommon for them to live 140. God's left a testimony in various places and these very rare individuals, a testimony that yes, this can happen. Well, this is so. Now so we got this long age here from when when Obed's born. Okay, after Boaz is born. So this would probably be too early. The next long judgment this Ammonite oppression of 18 years is way too late. I'm sorry. The next one here is I correct. The next long judgment is the Canaanite one. In between is this Canaanite judgment. Okay, this Canaanite judgment's next. And this Canaanite judgment's 20 years with plenty of time for an 11-year gap and the judgment coming upon them. And it would end with Barak becoming the judge, Israel repenting. When Barak became judge with Endeavor, they defeated Moab. They ended the Canaanite oppression, if you remember. And so this is the range that fits the facts as we know them. Because again, the next long period of judgment and that oppression begins is way down here. Almost 150 years later. Okay, should be around the time Jesse would have been born, with his father again being pretty old when he's born. So being very old when he's born, and that wasn't abnormal. When a wife may have multiple wives, or their wives died and marry again, like Abraham did, and have more children. So these things help us fix the time. There's roughly when it occurs during this period of Canaanite oppression, and these wild days and Shamgar's out there, or after these wild days of Shamgar, this Canaanite oppression that lasted for 20 years. Now the reception in Bethlehem, they can't believe they came back. That's the first thing. And there's a lot of prophetic pictures in Ruth. I'm not going to go into them all, but it's like, remember that Naomi is a picture of the Jewish people being cast out of the land and returning. And there's a lot of unbelief about it. They did this. And notice how the Lord brought me home. She acknowledged the Lord brought her home, but she's empty because she's admitting she's repenting. She brought all this on herself. So what she's acknowledging. And notice no one's here is helping her. They're surprised to see her, but you don't see them running around trying to take care of her, help her fit back in, and restore her. The only help she has is from Ruth the Moabitess, and this fact she's a Moabitess is of absolute importance because this is similar to a Good Samaritan Messiah told about. Remember the Moabites. First of all, Moab. After Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, Lot, if you remember, had his two daughters got him drunk and basically raped him and had children by him. And the oldest one was Moab. And God given them land, and told Israel they couldn't even have it because Abraham, part of his inheritance, he gave to Lot, and Lot picked that part over where Sodom was, and over the eastern part over there. So, but then but when Israel tried to go through Moab to the promised land, Moabites made them go around the edge, and the Israelites said they'd pay for the food. They just wanted to go sit on the King's Highway, wouldn't even get off it. This long highway went from Assyria down to Elat, and they didn't go around it. And then they hired Balaam, to curse him, and ultimately got him, who ultimately got him into this adultery of Baal Peor, where a bunch of them got killed. So Moab was cursed for 10 generations. When they came among the people of Israel for 10 generations, they cannot stand the congregation. That means that literally, and we'll show that in another lesson. But so Ruth's not just a foreigner. She's of a cursed ethnic group. A cursed group of foreigners who the people in Bethlehem do not like. And also, back to our little timeline here, the oppression for the Canaanite one was the Moabite oppression of Israel. So this is the last one we should be expecting to help Naomi, who we should be expecting as her own people. But her own people are doing nothing, and this person that they curse, who have strong prejudice against this other ethnic group, is the only one that's helping her. And notice when they arrived, the beginning of the barley harvest. Remember, when does the barley harvest get to begin? It begins after the first sheaves are brought at the Feast of First Fruits, the Sunday following Passover, the day of preparation. Okay, so that Passover week, whatever Sunday it is, that's always the first. That's first fruits. And if you don't, you can go confirm this yourself. Pay attention to the actual words. That's what it's actually saying. You'll say the day after the Sabbath, but we know that's Sunday in our current calendar. So this Gentile is there right after this thing, the celebration of the redemption of Israel by the Lamb, and yet they're not helping their own. We continue on with Ruth 2, verses 1 through 3. And Naomi, a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth, of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, let me go to the field and glean ears of corn after him whose sight I shall find grace. And she said to her, go, my daughter. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. Their half was to lie on the far of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the kindred of Abimelech. Okay, saying she just happened to land on that one. Okay, now there's a lot in there, and we'll talk about this in more detail. First of all, Boaz means strength. Man of strength, he's a man of strength, a man of wealth. In other words, he's of the family of Abimelech. And we'll see later how closely related to Abimelech he is, okay? But he's in this same family. Now, notice Ruth's the one that tells Naomi. She's heard about this thing about gleaning. And now she's going to go and take and do this. Now, why is Naomi not going? Perhaps her health's not well enough. But Ruth's going to go out there and glean those things. And so she's out there, and what this gleaning is, what this gleaning ears of corn. Don't think maize like we call corn today in North America. That and this means grain in Old English. And the grain, of course, is barley. Is when they would cut them, they'd cut these sheaves, and if in the process some fell to the ground, they couldn't pick it up. If some wasn't ripe, they didn't harvest it, they left it. They couldn't go back later and harvest it. That was gleaning as well. And if they dropped the sheaf, they couldn't pick it up. And who could get it? The poor and the foreigner, the fatherless and the motherless. I mean, the fatherless and the widow, the ones without a husband. So it was to take care of the poor and the foreigner. And Naomi, definitely the poor here. She apparently still has her house back in Bethlehem, and that's it. And Ruth is a foreigner. So Ruth knows about this, which means, of course, Naomi had told her. And now she's going to go and do this. And notice God's system. It's not money for nothing. Those who are receiving benefit still have to do something. They got to go work. So criticize some people who want it for nothing. Go, well, he just says God helps those who help themselves. The Bible says God helps those who help themselves. God's system here is, you go work, I'll make you successful. God never has a system. You sit around, do nothing, and I'll take care of it all. Now in Ruth, in chapter 2, verse 4 through 7, we continue on with it. We read this. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, Lord be with you. And they answered him and said, the Lord bless you. And the Lord said to his servant that was set over the reapers, whose damsel is this? The servants that was set over the reapers answered and said, it is the Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab. And she said, I pray you, let me glean and gather of the reapers among the seeds. So she came and continued from even from morning unto now, and she tarried a little in the house. The house, there's a little booth, a little shady booth. With perhaps she could sit in there and get some water and maybe drink some water and eat a little lunch. So all she's taking was a short lunch break, and she's been out there working continually the whole time out there. And this is whose damsel is this? Young woman is this? He knows this young woman, and perhaps he doesn't know he didn't know she's a Moabite when he saw her, perhaps, which tells us they didn't just look radically different than the people in Israel, and also he came back with Naomi. No, they don't even know her name. So now he notices he's taking care of Naomi when no one else in town, no one in her neighbors have been doing a thing for her. This stranger from this cursed ethnic group has been doing so, and he notices she's a hard worker. So we're going to continue on and see his response to these things he notices about her in Ruth 2, verses 8 through 10. And Boaz said to Ruth, "Hearest you not, my daughter? Go to glean in another field. Near go from hence, but bide here fast by my maidens. Let your eyes be on the field they do reap, and go you after them. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch you? And you are athirst, go to the vessels and drink that which the young men have drawn." Then she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground, said to them, "Why have I found favor? Why have I found grace in your eyes that you should take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger?" Okay. Expression, my daughter, indicates he's perhaps, he's perhaps older than her. Stay by his maidens. She's out there, she's been working alone, not a friend in the world. But now he wants them to be there with the other young women, the other young women that's around there. Lay your notice, be on the field at the reapers that reap. And he's charged the young men not to touch you. And drink of the water. She doesn't bring water. She doesn't bring water next time with a water skin with her or anything. She and she don't and she doesn't and she's gonna have some company and some companionship. And she wants to know why he's being so kind to her, particularly since she's a stranger. And she knows she's undoubtedly heard how Moab, growing up, heard how Moab had went and oppressed Israel, and how Israel had gotten the upper hand and drove them out, through that judge. And she's become the worst of the God of Israel. And she knows that the Moabites are under this curse. Yet he's treating her so kindly, and she wants to know why. What's driving his kindness? In Ruth chapter 2, verse 11 to 13, we get the answer. And Boaz answered, said to her, it has been fully showed me that all you have done to your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you have left your father and mother in the land of your nativity, are coming to a people which you knew not heretofore, up to now, that is to say. The Lord recompense your work, and a full reward be given you of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings you are come to trust. Let me find favor in your sight, my Lord, for that you have comforted me, and for that you have spoken friendly to your handmaiden, though I be not like unto one of your handmaidens. Okay, well, there's another law in here. Another, not a law, a commandment, the law, in the law, in the Torah, the law of God gave nonetheless, just like the laws of physics. Those that bless Israel will be blessed. Those that curse Israel will be cursed. Moab had been cursed because they'd cursed Israel. He had said this about Jacob, as well as Abraham. Made it very clear. And even Balaam had given testimony to this. Well, so the cursing that came upon her come because of that, because being a Moabite, they come upon the Moabite. But the blessing that's coming on her, the individual, is also because of that. The Lord repay your work. The Lord promised to bless those that bless Israel. The Lord bless you and bless you fully. And that was why is she blessing Israel? She's come to trust the God of Israel. And so it is today. Believers, follower Messiah, who have no Jewish connection at all, other than Messiah. I've come to trust the God of Israel. Gentile believers we're talking about. I'm sorry, not Jewish believers, Gentile believers. And note, cover me spoken friendly, though I be not like unto one of your handmaidens. She wasn't like those handmaidens in two ways. She wasn't like them in ancestry. She didn't have any lineage going back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now she'd born children to kill it. I mean, the Malone, her children would have, but she didn't have any. She wasn't like them because she didn't grow up among them. She was of a different ethnicity. She was a foreigner living among them, but she also wasn't like them in character. Notice Boaz noticed her hard work or working so hard, which tells us she stood out, which means if she stood out, the other people weren't doing it. If you go to some event, everyone's and you're wearing a bright orange tuxedo, and everyone else is wearing bright orange tuxedos, you don't stand out. But you go to an event, everyone's wearing a black tuxedos except you, and your bright orange one stands out. She's not like those other handmaidens. She's not neglecting this person, this woman of Israel, Naomi. She's not neglecting the person that the town should have been taking care of. The law said for to take care of the poor, particularly they're near you, your neighbor. She's not like them in character as well, and that's the more important thing. Now we continue on in Ruth chapter 2, verses 14 through 16. And Boaz said unto her, come at mealtime, come you to here and eat of the bread and dip your morsel in the vinegar. She sat down beside the reapers and he reached her parched corn, and she did eat, and was sufficed and left. And when she was risen up again to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, let her gleaning be among the sheaves, and reproach her not. And let fall some of the handfuls of purpose for her, and leave that she may glean them, and rebuke her not. Okay, he's letting them know, don't touch her. Don't reproach her. Don't rebuke her. Don't you dare speak badly to her, as people often do to minorities. Don't you mistreat her. And the law said that we're not to mistreat the foreigner or the minority among us, those of another ethnic group. That would include here in America, European Americans mistreating, if they're the majority in an area, African Americans. If the situation's reversed, it means African Americans not mistreating European Americans, and Native Americans not mistreating, and so on and so on and so forth. This is what God's law commands. And God says if you break it, he'll take up the side of the foreigner and punish you for it. So, but Boaz is going to get to him first, is like he's letting them know he's strong, he's wealthy, he's influential. And the instrument of judgment on them if they mistreat this foreigner is going to be Boaz himself. He's letting them know it. And don't rebuke her and act like she's stealing or something. So he's telling them to drop some on purpose and make sure. And notice this is he's letting them know he's going to like when people date and the man pays for dinner. He's telling the woman, I will take care of feeding you. He's letting her know he's going to take care of feeding her. And she's not going to have to bring any more water with her next time. She's going to have to bring any food with her from now on. She's going to eat. And notice he reached her. It means he gave her. He handed her himself this parched corn. And notice she only ate as much as she needed. And then she went back to work. She has a mind to work. So she's not privy to this conversation here. And that when he rebuked told his men earlier not to touch her, and of course that young men sometimes will sexually harass young women. Well, he told them not to even do that verbally. They better treat her right because Boaz is going to come down on them like a hammer if they don't. So we continue on in Ruth chapter 2, verse 17 through 19, and we're going to see what Ruth does in light of all this. So she gleaned in the field till evening, and beat out that she had gleaned. It was about an ephah of barley. And she took it up and went into the city and told her mother-in-law what she had gleaned. And she brought forth and gave to her that was reserved, that she had reserved until she was sufficed. After she was sufficed. The mother-in-law said to her, why have you gleaned today? Or where have you gleaned today? Where worked you? Blessed is he that acknowledges you. And she said to her mother-in-law, with whom she had worked, the man's name with whom I work today is Boaz. So notice she beat it out. She didn't bring it home just on the sheet. She took it off the stalks. She did everything. When beat it out, it means she got rid of all the she got rid of the outer shell. Just brought back the edible part. It was an ephah. Way more than what she needed for just one day for herself and her mother-in-law. And notice she only ate what she needed herself for dinner, and she gave the rest to her mother-in-law. And her mother-in-law notices this is way more than she expected. It'd be like if back when I was younger, people would sometimes do this. They would go down somewhere, say like the cell barn, say you need any help, and maybe they get and get hired for that day and whatever, and and then they come back. Well, it'd be like going down there and maybe you think maybe I'm gonna come back with $50 I earned, and I come back with 1,000. You notice, maybe not quite to that extent, but that's the ideal here. That's why she's asking all these questions. She wants us to repeat, okay? But this thing, it's Boaz as extra significance, which her mother-in-law is going to bring out to her. In Ruth 20, verse 20 through 23, and Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, Blessed be he of the Lord, who has not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead. And Naomi said to her, the man is of near of kin unto us, one of our next kinsmen. Ruth the Moabitess said, he also said to me, you shall keep fast by my young men till they've ended all my harvest. And Naomi said to our daughter-in-law, it is good, my daughter, did you go out with his maidens, they meet you not in the other field. So she kept fast by the maidens of Moab to glean until the end of the barley harvest and of the wheat harvest, and dwelt with her mother-in-law. Okay, so she's sticking with him all the way through the barley harvest, and they're going to start the wheat harvest. We'll look at that in a minute. Intends to do all the way through the harvest and to end all my harvest. Notice, keep fast with my young men. These young men, whom he told him not to harass her in any way, not saying anything verbally to her, certainly not to touch her. He has also charged them to guard her. That's why this keep fast by young men. And Ruth doesn't realize the significance of all this, but Naomi does. Because notice, blessed be he of the Lord, talking about Boaz, who has not left off his kindness of living to the dead. Why? What's this kindness to the dead? Her dead husband, Elimelech, his name is going to go out of the earth without a seed. His only two sons, Mahlon and Chilion, died after him without children. But there's a provision for this in the law, and that's to marry someone. Remember Zelophehad, the daughter Zelophehad only had daughters, but also before that, even way back in the time of Judah, if a man died without seed, his brothers one of his brothers was to raise up seed in his stead, to marry his wife and to raise up children for him. So Naomi sees hope to the name of her husband, Elimelech, and their son Mahlon not be lost, not be lost, not be lost when people name off their heritage, that the line not come to an end through Boaz. Now, in Ruth we continue on Ruth chapter 3, verses 1 through 4, and see what and see what and see her mother-in-law starting to come with a plan to bring this about. Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, shall I not seek the rest for you that may be well with you? Now is not Boaz of our kindred, with whose maidens you was? Behold, he winnows barley tonight in the threshing floor. Wash yourself, therefore, and anoint you, and put your raiment upon you, and get down to the floor, and make yourself not known to any man, till he has done eating and drinking. Then when he lies down, that you shall mark the place where he lies. He shall go in and uncover his feet and lay down. And he will tell you what you shall do." Okay. Naomi, remember, she'd looked out for him before and telling him to leave to get a husband. She's still looking out for Ruth. So now she's got the husband in mind, the perfect husband, because he is he is a kinsman that can raise up seed under her dead husband Abimelech, under Ruth's dead husband Mahlon. And he's winnowing barley. So it tells the barley harvest is over, but now he's out there after the sheaves are brought in. Now you got to winnow it, and that's you throw it up in the air with a wind blowing over a threshing floor, and the chaff blows away and the grain falls down. In barley, that outer covering the chaff is so soft that often after it dries, the wind itself is sufficient for a lot of it. It doesn't take a lot of pressure and crushing to do it. Unlike the wheat, which has to be crushed in the time of Messiah with what was called a tribulene, we get the word tribulation from. But the barley will respond to the wind, just as some people respond to the Holy Spirit, but that has to be crushed first before they'll surrender. So that's what he's doing this. And notice, wash yourself, take a bath, put on perfume. So I'm gonna anoint yourself, and put your raiment on you, your good clothes, and then hide out. Go down to his threshing floor, and go down there and hide out. When he goes to eat dinner, go in there and hide out and wait for him, and wait till he falls asleep. and then uncover his feet, and he'll tell you what to do next. This is this is her plan. This is dating, this is dating 1500 or whatever BC style. We continue on here in Ruth chapter 3, verses 5 through 7. And she said unto her, all you saying to me, will I do. She went down to the floor and did all according to her mother-in-law bade her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of corn. She came softly, uncovered his feet, and laid her down. Now notice again, Ruth absolutely submissive to her mother-in-law. Just like those who are sent to the Holy Spirit are absolutely submissive to the Holy Spirit. Hear what the Holy Spirit says, know what to do, and go do it, even if it does seem strange to them. So now she came softly. No, she didn't wake him up, uncovered her feet and laid down. She laid down at her feet. Lay down his feet. Well, why uncover his feet? There's twofold, but one, eventually his feet are been covered to keep him warm. They're going to get cold, and that's going to wake him up. And which it does, and we'll see the other purpose in a minute here. And it came to pass at midnight, the man was afraid. He turned himself, behold, a woman lay at his feet. He said, who art you? Who are you? She answered, I am Ruth the handmaid, your handmaid. Spread therefore your skirt over your handmaid, for you are a near kinsman. Okay. So she uncovered his feet and woke him up eventually. And he sees this woman. He's afraid. He doesn't know what she's doing there. Now, notice what she says. She tells him who he is, your handmaid, your humble servant. Spread therefore your skirt over your handmaid. That's saying, marry me. Ruth is giving the marriage proposal here, not Boaz. Boaz indicated he would protect her and take care of her, but never say anything about marriage. But now she is asking for marriage and gives the reason. Notice you are my near kinsman. This is in line with the commandments of God. Remember, I talked about this, how the raise up seed. And here's what God's word doesn't say. It doesn't say if you like their wife, if they like you, if you two think you're compatible, if some matchservice.com said you were a good match or not. You're marrying them out of love for the dead. Both parties are doing that. And here's the thing. Studies have found that people who meet their bride and they see each other for the first time, their face for the first time on their wedding day, like we saw it with Isaac and Rebekah, actually have more successful marriages, have more successful and more stable marriages than people who date. Because dating is based off this ideal that there's this perfect somebody for you out there somewhere. And you're going to find him. And it goes back to Greek mythology. When men and women were literally attached to each other, facing backwards from each other. And one of these Greek gods wanted to cause mischief and separate them and scatter them among each other. So people had to go look for their perfect match. Had to go look for their other half. That's where this ideal of dating came from. It was never God's ideal. In fact, the Bible goes so far as to say, as we said a couple weeks back, a few weeks back, when we talking about Delilah, it is good not to even so much as touch a woman that you're not married to, not even hold her hands. So Ruth is asking him to marry her because that she is her near kinsman, not because he's strong and he's wealthy and influential. The things that may have attracted other people to him. She's not a gold digger, some young woman wanting to marry an older man, so she can get his fortune when he dies. She is doing this out of love for her dead husband, Milan. Now of love for the God of Israel, who gave this commandment. Now in Ruth, we continue on in Ruth 3 in verses 10 through 14. And we'll look at the response of Boaz in the rest of this encounter. This setup, this arranged marriage by Naomi, as it were. And he said, and he said, "Blessed be the Lord, be you of the Lord, my daughter, for you have showed more kindness in the latter end than the beginning, insomuch you have not followed young men, whether rich or poor. Now, my daughter, fear not. I'll do to you all that you require. For all the people of the city know that you are a virtuous woman. Now it's true that I have a near kinsman, howbeit I am your near kinsman, however there is a kinsman nearer than I. Tarry this night, it shall be in the morning. If you perform me the part of the kinsman well, let him do the kinsman part, but if he will not do the part of the kinsman to you, then will I do the part of the kinsman to you, as the Lord lives, until the lie down until the morning. She lay his feet in the morning. She rose up before one could know another. He said, let that be known to the woman came to the floor. Okay, he doesn't want people thinking he's been with a prostitute or a woman he's not married, which is committing fornication. But he didn't want them just thinking about him. He also wanted them thinking about that about Ruth. The whole town knows that she's a virtuous woman. Why she's virtuous? Because she's doing what they should have done but didn't do. She's taking care of Naomi. This Gentile is more loyal to the God of Israel and the people of Israel and this woman of Israel than the people of Israel were. And Boaz is all too glad to marry her. And notice, she didn't try to get a young man. She's a young woman. Like I said, 25 to 30 years of age. Seemed like she should be matched with a vigorous young man. She's obviously vigorous herself. Look how long she's working. Sunrise to sundown, month after month, resting on the Sabbath only, resting on the Sabbath only at this point. The wheat's about to begin, and then she'll rest again on Shavuot. But other than that, she's out working, taking care of her mother-in-law. But she's a young man, a young woman, a vigorous young woman. And it seems natural she'd want a vigorous young man to be with. But that's the desires of the flesh. Her desires are the desires of God, desires of the Spirit, to obey the commandments of God, to show love to her dead husband Milan, and love to the God of Israel. But he's glad, but there's a problem. There's one that's nearer than him. Remember, her mother-in-law had said next to us. There's one that's closer. Well, remember, this tells us Boaz, Abimelech, and this other man are brothers, and typically is responsibility the oldest brother or the one closest in age. And if they're both, say that was in the middle, say Leviticus was in the middle, it'd be the older brother's responsibility first. And if he couldn't for some reason, then the younger brothers. Because the older one got a double inheritance, double portion of the inheritance. The older ones typically, uh, and if they haven't screwed it up, they also are ruling over the younger brother. So they have this extra responsibility because of that. Now, if Abimelech was the youngest brother, then the middle brother would be next to him. So it really depends on where Abimelech was, saying among these apparently three brothers. Well, let's continue on Ruth 3, verse 15 through 18, and let's proceed to see how it goes. And he said, bring the veil that you have upon you and hold it. And she held it, and he measured 6 measures of barley and laid it on her, and she went into the city. Then she came to her mother-in-law and said, who are you, my daughter? And she told her all the man had done unto her. And she said, these 6 measures of barley gave he me, for he said to me, go not empty your mother-in-law. And she said, sit still, my daughter, until you know the matter, how the matter will fall. For the man will not be in rest till he has finished this day. Okay, 6 measures of barley. All right, a measure was usually considered what one person needed for one day. So it's enough to feed Ruth and Naomi for 3 days. All right. And mother-in-law knows this matchmaker, Naomi, knows this man is determined to marry Ruth. He's going to marry Ruth. The other guy is, but he's determined to find out one way or another, and he's not going to rest till it's done. And that's what we begin in Ruth chapter 4, verses 1 through 2, and we see this. Her words coming, being put into action. And then Boaz went to the gate, and he sat him down there. Behold, the kinsman of Boaz came by, unto whom he said, ho, such a one, turn aside and sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. He took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, sit you down here. And they sat down. Okay, notice he's at the gate of the city. So, on the way in and out of town, and he's sitting there, he's gotten there early. Remember, Ruth left when it was not yet dark. Boaz went straight to the gate. As soon as the gate opens, Boaz is there. And he knows this man, if he's going to come into town at all for anything, he has to go through that gate. And he's waiting for him. And then notice, he takes 10 elders of the city and has them sit as well. Well, why does he do this? All right, first of all, let's talk about elders. The word's it's literally someone that's 60 years old and above. I've shown this before from scripture. Why 10? It's what's needed. It's what's needed to form a minyan for a bet din, a house of judgment. It's another name for a synagogue. The synagoga, Greek word is literally a Greek word. It means place of assembly, just like Beit Knesset today, like the house, like the Knesset in Israel, the house of their parliament building, the house of assembly. Well, on the Sabbath, it's for assembling the whole congregation, and on the holidays, perhaps as well, in the local, and when they're too far away, or the temple's not around or whatever, locally. But the other days of the week, it's for settling disputes among the members of the congregation. And this is why Shaul, the apostle Paul, said to the Corinthians, why are you going to the legal court system? Is there not anyone wise among you to settle these things? And the Juris Judaica and the Roman law allowed them to settle civil disputes in the bet din instead of the civil court. It can be done today in America if they both agreed to binding arbitration by the elders of their congregation. but more important that these elders needed to form a minion. And remember, we talked about before a long while back. I talked about why. It's why they're meeting at the river in Philippi, these Jewish women, because there's not 10 men. You can't have a synagogue without 10 men. Well, this has become a problem when Israel became ungodly, particularly during the time of the Maccabees, when so many of them turned to and joined the Greeks. But they said, we need 10. And they said, but we got 10 that are six that are old enough. We can't find 10 that are old enough and godly who know the law and keep it. So they lowered the age, and they lowered the age all the way down to 12 eventually. Puberty. And they were right in lowering the age from, if they could meet both criterias, the more important one was knowing the commandments and being able to judge rightly by those, and not just knowing them, but demonstrating obeying them. So someone who does it as a bar mitzvah becomes a son of the commandments. This is where this came from. So this is why he's getting 10 elders to make everything legal. And notice it's outside. He gets them. It's outside. It's in the open, in the courtyard. It's called the courtyard because court was held there. And instead of going down the county and registering, property change or whatever, you did it in public where everyone could see it. And these 10 men are witnesses. And remember, they're like a jury, but they're like the jury and judge in many ways rolled up in one. And even the prosecuting attorney, or maybe not the prosecuting attorney or the defending attorney, they can stop and ask questions themselves. Okay. So if you imagine the jury, and the jury can start asking questions wherever they want it, as well, and then they were the ones that passed judgment. That it'd be more closer to that. Okay, so he has to have them to make this legal, to make this whole business legal. So here's what he says. And we can resume in Romans 4. Ruth 4, verses 3 and 4, and we see how he's going to handle this. So he said to his kinsman, Naomi is coming again out of the country of Moab, sells a parcel of land, which was our brother Abimelech's. I thought to advertise you, saying, buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people. If you'll redeem it, redeem it. But if you'll not redeem it, tell me that I may know. For there's none to redeem it besides you, and I am after you. And he said, I will redeem it. Okay. So I'll redeem it. So this man says, okay, I'll do that. I'll redeem this. So she's selling the land. She's in poverty. And the rule was, when you sold the land, you divide it. So we'll make it simple. If you sold it right after the year of Jubilee, it'd be worth, let's say for $50,000. Every year after that, someone in your family could buy it back for that minus $1,000 per year, is based on how many years were left in the next Jubilee. Okay. So anyone in your family could buy it back. And the person that you bought it from didn't have a choice about selling it. And it went back to your family anyways in Jubilee, because the land ultimately belongs to God. And from God down to a tribe, down to a clan, down to an extended family, down to an individual. Okay. So the land's never really just the individuals anyways. So, it's not taking the land back away from the guy who's paid it and giving that, but you're giving him back he's basically renting the land is all I can ever do. And you're you're ending the rental agreement by paying him, the part left that he paid in the first place. So now he can redeem this land, and he'll be able to farm it and take care of it, and that means more income for him. So, he's all too glad to do this. But there's a part two to this that he doesn't know, and Boaz is going to bring that up next. Then said Boaz, what day you buy the field in the hand of Naomi, you must also buy it also of Ruth the Boamite, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar my own inheritance. Redeem you my right to yourself, for I cannot redeem it. This is the manner of the former time in Israel concerning redeeming and concerning changing, confirm all things. A man plucked of his shoe and gave it to his neighbor, which is a testimony in Israel. But for the man said the kinsman said to Boaz, buy it for you. So he drew off his shoe. Okay, taking off the shoe represents the right to walk on the land. You're transferring that right. So the shoe symbolizes that. You're not going to walk on the land anymore. It's not yours. It's the other guys. That's the transfer in the shoe business was about. Notice it's a custom. It was a custom in former times. Okay. Everyone's going to know because they're going to walk around with only one shoe or barefoot till they go buy another shoe. So, why does he want to buy it? Well, he's got to also buy Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead. Well, she's a young, vigorous woman, but notice his concern. Marring his inheritance. If he has to marry her, it can mar his inheritance. But what does he mean by that? Well, again, she's a vigorous young woman. And if she has more than, and if she has one son, he's going to get that field that he just bought. When he gets 20 years older to be his whatever, it's going to be his, and it's going to stay it's going to be in the name of his father, Milan, and Abimelech. Okay, it's going to stay in that name. So he's not going to get to keep the field unless he marries Ruth, and even then, But this word I was marring his inheritance is what if Ruth has more than one son? Well, now the other sons are counted as his. Everyone after the first one, only the first one's counted as the dad's. The rest are counted as his. Well, maybe he's already divided. He's already wasn't unheard of. It gets to the point they think I'm not going to have any more children. Let's go ahead and divide the land. Cast lots, the whole bit, so people know where to build their houses, etc. Well, now all that is going to be messed up. If she has another son, it's going to be part of inheritance. He's got to wait. After she's done having more giving him more sons, he has to sit there and redistribute the whole inheritance again, and they got to recast lots. And maybe one son built a house and everything, and now when they recast lots, he doesn't get it. One of these other sons gets it. They came out of Ruth. And it's gonna mar everything he's got. He's already got everything all set up, and this will ruin it. So it means by mar, it'll ruin his inheritance, and not to mention those older sons from his other wife or wives, however it may have been, aren't going to be happy about this, particularly if they built a house, except and they have to hand it to someone else. And perhaps they have to start over on a piece of land that has that hasn't even been cleared, that needs to be cleared for it to even be farmed. So it's going to cause trouble, not just in the other sense, but trouble in his household. So he wants Boaz to go ahead and marry her, to redeem the land, because redeeming the land, they're not separate. He redeems the land, he also has to marry Ruth. All right, so we continue on here in Ruth 4, in verses 9 and 10, and we see Boaz's response to this. And Boaz said to the elders, to all the people, you're a witness this day. I've bought all that was Abimelech's, all of his Kilion's, and all of his Milans of the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Milan, I have purchased with my wife to raise up to the name of the dead upon his inheritance. The name of the dead be not cut off among his brethren, and from the gate of his place. You are witnesses today. Okay, so he's gonna pay Naomi. He's gonna give her money to take care of her the rest of her life. Kind of like some of these reverse mortgages or whatever, where people where they sell their property, where they sell their property. Basically, they're gonna get paid so much a month, and when they die, whoever they had the reverse mortgage with owns the house. So they gives them money to live, and they get to stay in the house until they both die. So he's giving her money to live on the rest of her life. Naomi's taken care of. Ruth is married to him, Mr. Mighty Man of Wealth. She's taken care of. Milan and Kilion and Abimelech, if Ruth has a child, they're going to be taken care of. So he's doing everything in accordance with the law. And this tells something about Boaz. He's also very interested in the law. Again, I want to bring to your attention, there's no dating or nothing. And it's like a show my wife told me about called Married on First Sight, where these matchmakers would set people up, modern day. You know, they'd run compatibility tests, wherever they did, where they thought, set people up, and they would meet on their wedding day and get married. Married on first sight. So that's what's going on here. Again, no concern, none of this nonsense people talk about. The reason why those marriages work is this: a successful marriage is not about two people find the perfect other person. It's about two people treating each other right. And these are marriages, people know what's expected of them, know what they should do, know how to treat the other person right, and they do it. And that's what makes the marriage work. Because there are no perfect people. You're never going to find Mr. and Mrs. Perfect because they don't exist. Even someone like the Apostle Paul said, there's no good thing in me, that is to say, my flesh. They still, as long as we're in these bodies, our bodies are not saved, and there will be problems. Okay. Now we're going to our last section here about Ruth. We're going to see how this all works out. And all the people were in the gate, and the elders said, "We are witnesses. Lord, make this woman as it come into your house like Rachel and like Leah, which two did build the house of Israel. And do you worthily in Ephratah, and be famous in Bethlehem. Let your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, the seed which the Lord shall give you of this young woman." Okay, remember, Tamar was another foreigner, a Canaanite. But she loved God and was more godly than Judah, he said, as Judah himself admitted. She dressed up like a hot prostitute to get Judah to go into her, because her first husband had died. She'd married his brother to raise up seed to her first husband. He died. Judah refused to give him his third son. So she dressed up like a prostitute to get Judah to go into her to raise up seed to her two husbands, which she did. And the oldest of those sons is Perez. So Perez means breach. She broke all the normal protocols. When he born illegitimate, and we'll talk about the significance of that later. But Judah was at fault more than her. She was seen as virtuous in that she wanted to raise up seed to her dead husbands. Now, Ray and Rachel built what? The house of Israel. Now, this woman, this family is going to come from this woman is going to build up the house of Messiah, not the house of physical Israel, but the house of spiritual Israel. The builder of it's going to come through this woman. Again, there's a lot of things prophetic in this I could go over. Famous in Bethlehem, Bethlehem famous for various people. We talked about some. They've been our previous two lessons were both about Bethlehem, Judah, the Levite who came from there. The Levite, or two Levites who came from there. One, he went to be the priest in the religion of Micah, and one whose concubine was raped and murdered by the wicked men of Gibeah. Well, it's a third person from there, three in a row we see from the same town after all the judges are listed in the book of Judges. This town's already becoming famous, and it's going to become more famous, and we'll look at that when we wrap up. Now, in Ruth 4, verse 13 through verses 13 through 16, read the following, and there's a very important note in all this, and we'll discuss it. Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife, and he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. And the woman said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord, which has not left you this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. He shall be unto you the restorer of your life and the nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, which loves you, is better to you than 7 sons, has borne him." And Naomi took the child and laid it in her bosom and became a nurse unto it. Okay, there's a lot here that's, well, just supernatural that people miss. People often miss the supernatural because they're looking for the spectacular. But we're gonna go over this. Notice the Lord gave her conception. She had been barren up to this point, perhaps. May have been all. Boaz is old. He's never had any children that we know of. This birth of this child through Boaz and Ruth is supernatural. And this is the point of this bringing out the Lord gave her conception. This was not just a husband going to his wife and her conceiving. That happens every day. Nothing supernatural about it. But this was supernatural. The Lord is the one who caused it to work. Otherwise, it's just been a dry run, and that's the only kind they would have ever had. And notice the women give who the credit? The Lord has not left to this day without a kinsman. That kinsman's Boaz. His name's going to be famous in Israel. So Boaz is the kinsman redeemer of Ruth. He's a picture of Messiah. Ruth, remember, was a Gentile. She's brought out over and over again. Before this, notice even right here, she's called Ruth the Moabitess. But now she's just Ruth. Okay. Notice the switch. She's just Ruth. She has been grafted in to the people of Israel. Why is she no longer Ruth the Moabitess? Because she's married in. And remember, if a man in his household was all circumcised, they were no longer counted as if they were part of another ethnic group. They were now counted as if they were native born, as if they were physical descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So Ruth, by marrying it with Boaz here, is once again is now No longer Ruth the Moabite, she's just Ruth. Root in Hebrew. Companion. She has been grafted in with the people of Israel. Now remember, the strangers in Israel, foreigners were allowed to live in strangers, and they didn't have all the same restrictions on them the people of Israel did. But if they got circumcised, but they couldn't do everything else, everything they could do either. They couldn't participate in Passover, eating the lamb, particularly as I've shown before. They couldn't. There were other things there were other things they could not do. It's certain things that only people those who were not strangers could do. But they also have all the restrictions. For example, something died of itself. Those who were born who were kind of as native born could not eat it, but those who were strangers among them could. And it's again a picture of Gentile believers. Jewish believers are descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or have come to that, or have made shown an agreement to keep all the customs by being circumcised. Have to keep the customs of the law, like Paul did. The Apostle Paul said he did in chapter 21. Shaul, the Apostle Paul, said he did in Acts 21, chapter 21, verse 24, where they said that you also keep the law. What are they talking about? Verse 21, the custom of the law. What is it about the Gentiles? Concerning the Gentiles, keeping the custom of the law, we gave no such commandment. There's the same thing under the law. Now, in the stranger that lived among the people of Israel, when they were in the midst of them, the law of the land, there's lots of laws they had to keep because they were in that land. If they left the land of Israel, they had to keep them. And when the Jews, and that was the whole controversy with Paul, with Shaul, the Apostle Paul, the accusation against him was he was telling Jews who didn't live in the land of Israel, they had to keep those customs anymore because they were surrounded by the Gentiles. But no, because the law of the land of the Gentiles didn't require them. And Paul taught no such thing. And so these purposely customs is to show your ethnicity, to show you that you're part of this ethnic group of Israel. All nations, the promises of all ethnic groups would be saved. Well, if they all become Jews, then there is no evidence that God kept that promise. Because in reality, he only saved Jews. But his promise to Abraham to all the families of the earth is not, and what we see in Revelation, it would also not be true, where people of every tribe, nation, ethnic group, and tongue are around the throne of God praising him. Well, if they all got circumcised and kept all the customs of the law, they weren't of another ethnic group anymore. And so it is with Ruth. That's why she's no longer Ruth. Again, here, Ruth the Moabitess. Now she is just Ruth. And again, it's a picture of Gentile believers becoming part of not the physical people of Israel, the spiritual people of Israel, not the ethnic group of Israel, but again, that greater Israel, the spiritual Israel, the Israel of God that Shaul talked about. And we finish here with Ruth 17, verse 4, 17 through 22, and we see how this thing about becoming this child born becoming famous comes to pass. And the women, something else I meant to bring out to you. Notice Naomi nursed it, laid it in her bosom, nursed it. Naomi is breastfeeding this child. That's not humanly possible without God doing something supernatural. And notice that this child can be treated as if it's Naomi's child, not Ruth's. And the women her neighbors gave her the name, saying, notice who names the child, the neighbors of Naomi, the ones who weren't taking care of her, by the way, before. There's a son born to Naomi. They call his name Obed, for he is the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez begat Hezron. Hezron begat Ram. Ram begat Abinadab. Abinadab, what? Adab. There we go. Aminadab begat Nashon. Nashon begot Salmon. Salmon begot Boaz. Boaz begot Obed. Obed begot Jesse. And Jesse begat David. Yeshai, if you prefer to, go with Hebrew. But anyways, begat. Okay, Obed. Just drew a blank there. Okay. Wait. Obed. I drew a blank there. I'm sorry. Um, no, it doesn't mean salvation. Obed means servant or worshiper. There we go. It means worshiper. That's what I was going on. Sorry, it's one of the blank there. It means worshiper. Okay. Worshiper. His mother's a worshiper. The people that come from her is a worshiper. She's a picture of the church, this Gentile church that marries this Jewish Messiah that produces worshipers. Now, there's 10 generations here. We'll talk about another time. But notice David. When you think about Bethlehem, famous men from Bethlehem, you think of David and Messiah. Both came through Ruth to this child, this worshiper, Obed. Comes from the word Aved, which means to worship, to serve. Worshiper is a servant. And that's important for you to know because the greatest worship is obedience. So I'm gonna leave you that thought. I'm gonna leave you that thought for this week. That's it for this week. Next week we will continue on in the wild days of the judges, and we'll look at the days leading up to Samuel. Until then, shalom.